to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to convene the Zoning Commission regular meeting for July 28th, 2022, 7 p.m. This meeting is being held in Town Hall Room number 133. I was going to ask if someone would like to make a motion that we move agenda item under new business number 8A to follow the land use enforcement officer's report in the interest of time, because most of our business is going to be tabled or continued. So I thought maybe we could do that if it would help.
I'll make that motion to move agenda item 8A to right after item 3A.
Yes, thank you, Kurt. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Bashendra. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Nay? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Yeah. Next, we'd like to ask everyone to please introduce themselves, starting from my immediate far left.
Alternate member Kurt Timmerman.
Regular member Andrew Kame.
Regular member Gary Getz.
Regular member Bashendra Kumar.
Regular member Phoebe Holmes.
We're also going to ask Mr. Kurt Timmerman to step up as a regular voting member tonight to replace Daryl Pratt, who is unable to be with us this evening. Next up, number 2, under number 2A, review the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns related to those minutes
I do, Mr. Chairman.
from June 23rd? Yes.
I just wanted to talk about just one addition that I think that needs to be made to the section here regarding the opt-out of public acts. The minutes sort of make it look like I was handling everything there, and that's not quite the case. There was discussion prior to my withdrawing my motion with Commissioner Holmes, and she indicated at that time that there was really no reason for us to be pushing this off, and that we could move this item ahead, so that as a result of that, I withdrew my motion, and then the motion was brought to the floor, and it was passed. So I think she should get credit for that in this situation here. So I would add that prior to where it says Secretary Kame withdrew his motion, there was discussion where Commissioner Holmes indicated that there was really no reason to push this off, and that we could vote on that, and that at that point my motion was withdrawn, and a substitute motion that was agreed upon with Commissioner Holmes was substituted.
Okay, does anyone else have any further discussion?
If that's
Phoebe?
how you read it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to make that a motion then, Mr.?
Well, yes, I'd like to amend the minutes to reflect that.
Okay. So we'll basically call what your amendment is a motion. Is there a second to Andy's recommended amendment? Phoebe seconds it. Okay. Any further discussion? None. All those please signify by saying aye if you're in favor of the motion.
Aye.
Anyone opposed by nay? And any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. That's the minutes. Next up, we have the Land Use Enforcement Officer's report.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
107 Stoney Hill Road, there's been no update. Demi Paparo, the building official's been working with the property owner and the engineer. To this date, there's still no update on that 17-foot high retaining wall. So I'm monitoring that. That's still ongoing with the neighbor because they wanted to deed part of the property over, but by doing so, that would make the one property non-conforming, so they couldn't do that. So both parties are still trying to work this issue out. So once I get more information, I will definitely notify the commission. 81 Clearview Drive, the Costello residence. There's been no action over there. There's been no complaints, which is good. Again, as I indicated, and I have it noted on the OpenGov, that I will not sign off until everything is resolved out there with the neighbors. And I have a copy of the engineer's report indicating that no stormwater is going to run off the property. down on the downstream neighbors, so they're well aware of that, but they have never responded to my letter. But it's noted in the system, so they get it via email, so. 47 High Ridge Road, Salis property. In speaking with the first selectman the other day, the town attorney, Dennis Kokinos, is getting involved in this now. We have outstanding liens on this property, and going to see what actions that the town attorney suggests that we take on moving forward on this. So this is still moving forward. Page 44 Wisconsin Road, Johnson residence. This was back from May. They had vehicles parked up on the corner of West Wisconsin and Wisconsin Road. Sent the notice of violation out. He did come in and speak to me and tell me he was gonna remove the vehicles, wanted to know who was complaining. Again, it seems like another neighborly issue, but instead he's put another vehicle up there now, and the neighbor just spoke to me today. So I spoke to him and I suggested that I would talk to the commission tonight and ask the commission to move forward with a cease and desist order on the property. So that's my suggestion to the commission.
Anyone like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to send a cease and desist to 44 Wisconsin Road.
I'll second that motion.
Okay,
I'm
we had
second that
Mr.
motion.
Timmerman made the motion, Mr. Kame seconded it. Is there any discussion? Okay, well, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you. Yep. 32 North Pleasant Rise Road. I received another complaint from the neighbor on Monday, who was in the office. This is, again, a neighbor dispute up there between three property owners. I did contact the Brookville Police because the police have been up there numerous times. And it's continually ongoing. Hatfields and McCoys, or whatever you want to call it. It's been ongoing. There's no violations up there. It's just one person doesn't like what the other one is doing, and they're complaining about property lines. One woman at 32 North Pleasant Rise called me today complaining that she wasn't in favor of how the A2 survey was done on her property. Again, I indicated that's done, that's civil, it's not nothing to do with us, and therefore it's all taken off by the deeds of the town clerk's office. Again, civil issues, there's no violations there at this time, but I'm going to continually monitor this. 271 Federal Road, White Star Properties. This is the old,
Fox Hill Inn.
yeah, thank you, yep, Fox Hill Inn, the White Star Properties. The church services were being held. There's no church services being held to date that I'm aware of. The issue is now, after speaking with Attorney Cook, for them to do a zone change. It's going to incorporate another property, which is going to be, I believe, 291 Federal, which is the assisted living, because that falls inside that C1 zone. So again, nothing's being done there. They're using it for storage. They come in, they come out, they get their equipment out, they go to different locations. They have a place in Rogers Park Middle School, and they're using a place up on Stoney Hill for their services, to my understanding. And I haven't received any more complaints from anybody there, so continually monitoring this one too. So 89 Wisconsin Road, Gone residents. I have a court date of September 8th with the town attorney. We'll be going to court on this one right here on the contractor's yard up there. So there's no new updates. I'm actually meeting with the town attorney on Tuesday at 9:30 in the office, so to go over more stuff on this one right here. So
Do you need us for any reason, the
No.
commissioners or anything? Okay.
no, and then thank you. 67 Longmeadow Hill Road. I sent the citation to this property at the last meeting. The commission made a motion to go to a citation. Citation was served by a sheriff. Since then, once he was served, he removed everything from the property. The neighbor actually came in the other day and thanked me for everything, and was very happy with the outcome of everything, so moving forward, so. And that would be it.
Thank you.
I just had a question. It's nothing to do with your report, but there is a property on, across from the cornfield. You used to be a former church parsonage, I believe.
Yes.
I believe it's been sold. I'm not sure where it's headed, but it appears to be headed for the blight list at this point. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong, I'm just asking if you're aware of it. Or if there's been no complaints, then there's been no complaints.
There's been no complaints. I am aware of the individual who bought it. I do believe I'm not sure if he submitted for application. He's got a couple applications in. I'm not sure if one is for that property, but I do know.
So things are contemplated.
They are.
Okay, that's what all I was looking for.
Thank you. Any other questions for the zoning enforcement officer? Thank you, Mr. Lally.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda, we moved item 8 up to follow this item. 763 and 777 Federal Road, The Renaissance, number Z-22-46. Is the applicant here?
Yes,
Please proceed.
yeah, good evening. I'm Attorney Matthew Willis of Howard Sage. I represent the applicant, the property owner. And this is a site plan modification application that was filed. And just to kind of move things along, I'm gonna have Sam the record come.
I'm
Yeah, Attorney Matthew, M-A-T-T-H-E-W, Willis, W-I-L-L-I-S.
Thank you so much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, my name is Kenneth Ricca. I am a professional engineer and licensed land surveyor. And also with me tonight is Kent McCoy, the architect on the project, to answer any questions that you may have on the building architecture. And what we're presenting is some modifications to an existing site plan. A word of caution for me is that I did not prepare the original site plan, but that engineer has retired, so the modifications have been made, but we try to keep them down to a very minimum at best. And on our site plan, I don't know if you've had a chance to review, but there's really 5 basic modifications that we're making. The biggest modification is there's 2 buildings planned, one large building with residential component and some retail component, and then there's a smaller building on the site that was proposed that was strictly residential, but the change in there is that the upper ground floor level that's accessed from the street is going to serve now as a daycare facility. There's currently a daycare facility in this plaza now. And that tenant apparently is a good tenant, so the owner would like to keep them on board. And the object is to do the design in 2 phases, where they build this and then they can move the daycare into this building while they do the second building. It's also a great idea because this is a mixed-use application with a lot of residential in the main building, and having a daycare on site is a pretty handy amenity at any rate. The only change to the buildings is that there was a small bump out on this building in the rear, and that's just been eliminated. The locations haven't changed. Most of the site grading has not changed. The stormwater management system hasn't changed. The main building itself hasn't changed. But with the daycare, one of the bigger changes was a grading feature on the back side. This was just really kind of a hilly area back there. But they needed a playground, so we're providing a 3,000 square foot playground behind the building. And to facilitate that and make it level and usable, we've extended a proposed retaining wall to tie into the building so that we don't have steep grades right along the side of the building. And then added a second, much smaller and height retaining wall, just to keep this whole area level. This space is not confined, so that when the kids and staff are out and back, there is a walkable access way out to the front of the building. It also provides a decent emergency access to get out of the building during an emergency, and they can get out to level ground and then either go along adjacent to the building or get out to Federal Road near the properties. So that's actually the major change, is adding 3,000 square foot of play area. The other minor changes coming along with that is that in the front of this building, we're showing sidewalk and a retaining wall. When we looked at the grading along the side of this building, it really didn't make a lot of sense. There was a 3 or 4 foot drop off, so we've added a very short, very small retaining wall. And the former plan didn't show any access to this building. There's always been doorways planned here, and so we've added just a sidewalk to the existing concrete sidewalks on the road with a planted area and 2 accesses on either side, which would all be made out of concrete. We've also added 2 parking spots. Reduced the total unit count by 10, but still added 2 more spots, just because it's always good to have plenty of spots. And in doing so, we've rearranged some of the handicap parking on site. The former project that was approved had all of the exterior parking for handicap in this area here, and nothing on the outside of this building. So we've slid 2 parking spots over adjacent to this building and made that handicap accessible, and then we moved those 2 moved to here, and we've left 2 on this side also for handicap accessibility. And it actually works out pretty nice with the ramping, so that we're not creating an undulating sidewalk with 8 or 10 parking space, handicap spaces with ramps for each one that you have to walk up and down each one. There was also planned an overhead connector bridge between the 2 buildings. That's gone. It wasn't a very popular item, so we decided to take that out of the project. Really doesn't make sense now at all with the daycare facility being here. The 4th change would be porches and grading in the front. The porch has always been a part of the project, but it was never shown on the approved site plan, so we've added that. And by doing so, it forced us to change the grading and relocation of 1 catch basin. We moved it 6 or 8 feet and changed the elevation a bit. It still handles the stormwater, and it provides the intent we had in front. It just needed to be slightly modified to accommodate the porch that's on the front of the building. And I've also mentioned the 5th modification, which was the parking on the north side of the building, where we just rearranged, moved 2 spots out of there that were handicapped, added a couple of conventional spots, and made it more convenient to have handicap parking in 2 different places on the site. That's pretty much what I have for a presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Mr. Timmerman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things. There's still 120 units, or is there fewer because you're putting a retail component in the?
The answer is fewer. And Mr. McCoy.
Yeah, it actually drops from 120 to 110.
Okay.
So we remove 10 units to get the ratio.
Now, on the impervious, you took away the bridge, but there was always paving underneath, so it
Yes.
doesn't change the impervious at all? And,
If anything, we've increased the impervious area slightly by adding 2 parking spaces here, 360 square feet of additional impervious area.
mhm.
And the sidewalks, which should have been there, but they drain actually towards the roadway, so they're not being added
All right, and
to the system.
have you gone to wetlands already? Because if you're changing some areas on the right there with retaining walls,
Yes,
do they?
wetlands, we have gone to wetlands, and they're doing a staff modification or having a brain cramp.
Administrative or something?
Administrative approval on that, yes.
Okay. And the last thing, which,
It's actually agent determination.
all right. And these are modifications based on those drawings back in 2016?
Yes.
March and April?
Yes, everything.
that site plan and this is-
Everything is the same on this plan except for the 5 modifications.
All right.
that I've listed.
And as far as EV goes, has nothing to do with your mods, but are you thinking of infrastructure? I know it doesn't have to happen till Jan 1, 2023, but are you thinking about
At
that?
this point, it has not been discussed.
Okay. And so you wouldn't discuss what you're gonna do inside the garages either?
Correct.
All right.
Are there elevators on this property at all?
Yes, there are.
And,
In the larger building, we have two elevators here, and in the smaller building, one elevator here.
I'm not sure how this affects your thing, and if I'm wrong, just please let me know. The fire department has expressed a concern on some other projects regarding the size of the elevators, because they have a heavier duty stretcher, because everybody's gotten a little bigger than in the past, and they
Yeah.
call it a striker stretcher, and it requires a larger elevator than it would be standard,
Yeah.
and that's what they're using, so
Yeah.
I'm just bringing that to your attention, I
No,
guess.
that's good to know, and there's plenty of room here around the elevators to make sure that we get the size that the fire department.
Okay, good.
Anyone else with any other questions at this time?
I could just add, from an
Please.
architectural perspective, as Ken said, lower level is no change at all to the building. Main level, as Ken said, it's really just a smaller building where we're eliminating 10 units in order to accommodate the daycare, and then getting rid of the kind of sky bridge that connected the two buildings. And then otherwise, it's the same. The elevations are the same as presented in 2016, and the materials and general feel of the building, this is actually the rendering from 2016, so there's no change to that. It's a combination of brick, clapboard, asphalt shingles, pitched roofs, dormers, double hung windows.
Do you have anything else you'd like to present, or anything else you want to add at this time? I don't know what the consensus is. I mean, personally, I'd like a little more time to digest this, because this is relatively new to me.
Yeah,
It's got a history.
I think I wasn't even on the commission at the time, so this happened back in 2016, it was approved. So I think if we review all the minutes and all the resolutions that happened then we'd be in a better position to, on our next meeting. I would recommend continuing to the next meeting so we can get all the basis for these mods, because this is a brand-new commission, so we hadn't seen the original.
Sure.
Yeah.
So would you like to make a motion then to table this to August 25th? Which is our next
Yes, I'll
meeting?
make a motion to continue application Z-22-46, 763 and 777 Federal Road, the Renaissance, till our next scheduled meeting on August 25th, 2022.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman. We have a motion from Mr. Timmerman, seconded by Mr. Kane. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Let's vote on it. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're back to the regular flow of the agenda. Item 4, review correspondence. That's on there by our bylaws, but typically, unless anyone has anything they'd like to say or add about that, we can move on. Noted that we do have a quarterly newsletter, this time from the Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Agencies. So hearing no other discussion about that, we'll go to number 5, continue public hearing. Proposed regulation change number Z-21-1014. Mr. Kane, as the chairman of that subcommittee, do you have an update related to that?
Yes, I do. Let me just bring the commission up to date. At the last meeting, we had discussed with the director of land use that
Thank you.
we had submitted a zoning change to her. At the last meeting, she indicated that it didn't read quite as well as it probably should, and that she wanted an opportunity to take a look at it. We also wanted it, input from the legal folks on, as to the zoning change. Subsequent to that, that has not occurred, by the way. We have not gotten any feedback from her. I did have a discussion with her in that the office is, got a lot of activity going on right now, and then they had a few folks that were out sick, and that there's been some personnel changes in the office. So I have gotten copies of some of this information, and I'm taking a look at revising that myself as part of that. That has not occurred yet. Additionally, we received information from both land use director and from Mike, Commissioner Lucia, that the format of this zoning change has got to comply with the existing format that we use for all zoning changes. Mr. Lucia, who's unfortunately not here tonight, submitted a addition to the zoning change, 4 pages of additional use, additional comments, or I guess amendments would be the correct term, that will make it align with our zoning regulations. And so that's where we're at with it. I would wish wish that Mr. Lucia were here tonight so that he could comment on this. My suggestion is that myself and Mr. Lucia meet with the land use folks, integrate what had been put together by the subcommittee with this information provided by Mr. Lucia. I think those two components, with the blessing of the land use director and a review by the thing, will create a ready to vote on change for the next meeting, if that's what folks
And reviewed by the town attorney?
and reviewed by the town attorney, that's correct. Again, the impetus here was, we are all aware of the fact that after January, the state has a lot of input for new construction. The thrust that we have been working with here in the subcommittee is where we do anticipate that condominium associations, churches, different groups, current folks that, or operations that were built, will be coming in requesting EV charging stations. And this information talks about, permits and zones. How is it going to work
Yeah.
with land use? How will they go about approving that process? It will ultimately come before this commission for approval, but we want to make it as easy as possible for folks to embrace this technology on a smaller scale than large-scale commercial operations. So my suggestion would be that we continue this till the next meeting to allow myself and Mr. Lucia and the land use director and other members of the committee, the subcommittee, to have a meeting with them just to pull these two pieces together. I don't think any new information is needed here. This is just simply an integration of the two parts into something that fits our regulations and is approved by the attorneys.
Did you want to make that into a motion?
Just say so moved. and-
So moved.
That's a lot to say.
I'd like,
5 minutes.
yes, I'd like to continue this so that we can meet with the
Okay.
land use director and have it reviewed by the attorneys and integrate the two pieces of information that we have. And I want to thank Mr. Timmerman for working with Mr. Lucia to help with this. This has been a much more intensive process than was originally anticipated. That's probably an understatement.
I have to say.
Any discussion?
Oh,
Please,
yeah, just, I agree with, continuing and having that meeting. Having the state regs and referencing them collapses a lot of the stuff, and taking out mandates, when it's just, except for the one, and then we can just say, as per, state reg. And so the charts, a lot of the verbiage disappears.
Okay.
I second.
Phoebe, so Mr. Kane made the motion and Phoebe seconded it.
Good idea.
Any further discussion on this motion? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please do signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed by nay. Any abstentions? Hearing no abstentions, the motion carries.
One further comment, Mr. Chairman. As soon as we have something, I would like to put it out to all members of the commission as early as possible so that you can review it prior to the next meeting. I don't want to be handing you something on the night of the meeting. So we will make every effort to get it to you at least 10 days before the meeting, if we can.
Thank you. Okay, next item under continued public hearings is 5B, 701 Federal Road Z-22-34, design review mixed-use building. I believe we got an email from these folks asking that we move this to August 25th as well, so if anyone would like to make a motion to table this item until the next meeting,
Sure.
certainly entertain that.
I'll make a motion to continue application Z-22-34-701 Federal Road, design review mixed-use building, to our next scheduled meeting on August 25th, 2022.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I second.
Sandra Komar seconded the motion. Any discussion?
Just to be aware, we did get that lighting plan that they said they were gonna give us.
Oh, okay.
For that.
That was a question last time. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I received that letter, but I'm not quite sure, again, I am fully in agreement with granting the extension, but the letter that came in seemed to indicate that they were granting us an extension.
Yeah, I was a little
Yeah,
confused by
that's
that too.
They couldn't
Is
grant,
that the way it works?
Yeah,
yes.
Okay,
because we would have to close the public hearing by a certain date
Okay.
as per state law unless they let us go further.
okay, that answers
Yeah,
my
it just kind of
question.
appears that they're granting us something we didn't ask for, you know, but it makes sense under those
Yeah.
terms.
But since we would have approved it anyway, I think we're all set.
So we've got clarification. We still have the motion on the floor to table this. Everyone in favor? Did we already vote on it?
I thought we
Okay.
were extending it. I thought we were extending it till next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just the
we're
motion.
voting on the
Continuing, okay.
motion to continue.
So all those in favor of extending this matter until August 25th, please do signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by nay. If there are any abstentions, please say so. Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item, 6A, public hearings. The matter of 434 Federal Road, number Z-22-35. Likewise, we received an email 2 days ago requesting to continue this to our next meeting of August 25th, 2022. And similarly, would anyone please like to make a motion regarding this?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we continue it until August, that we continue the public hearing of item number Z-22-35, 434 Federal Road, to our next meeting, which is August 25th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Chandra Komar seconds, Mr. Andrew Kames motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please do signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries as well. Next item on the agenda is number 7, old business. A, update the town of Brookfield zoning map to identify the historic district. This is something that we talked about back in, I believe, January, and we tabled it because we like to save up these things, as we were mentioning, to kind of take care of old business of these minor matters. And it doesn't appear we've gotten anything new since then, so this is back under old business, and I was willing to entertain a motion to accept that, because we talked a lot about it, but we never actually finalized it. Anyone like to make a motion regarding that?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept. The following motion was made following motion was made at January 10th ZBA Commission meeting under informal discussion type. A Commissioner Alan Donnelly made a motion to refer to the zoning commission as of January 10 that the Brookfield Historic District number 1 upcoming historic district number 2 and all future historical sites to be added to our official town zoning map.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Mr. Timmerman seconded Mr. Komar's motion. Is there any discussion? Hear no discussion, so therefore, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item is 7B, a vote on minor word changes to zoning regulations that also date back to January, February of this year. And there were a couple of minor changes that we similarly tabled because we'd like to save them up, but we're in the summer now, and here we are. Would anyone like to make a motion relative to that item?
I'd like to make a motion, and I'd also like to read the proposal, if that's okay.
Certainly.
This was to the zoning commission from the Zoning Board of Appeals. It was dated December 9th, 2021. They are requesting regulation amendment from the ZBA. Following motions were made at the December 6th, 2021 ZBA Commission meeting under the informal discussion topic. Item A, Commissioner Donnelly made a motion to refer to the Zoning Commission in Article 5.1.E, right column, to either strike, double strike, or completely remove the words 3 stories and replace it with, and leave 42 feet. So Janet LaForgia seconded the motion and it carried 5-0. Second part of this is item B, which Commissioner Donnelly made a motion to refer to the Zoning Commission to correct the following in Article 5.1.E in the right column where it says 10 feet plus the width of a rear yard driveway, end quote. And that's to replace it with 22 feet. And in the left column, add minimum. Janet LaForgia seconded and carried it. So it appears to me that this is simply a clarification that there will be no change in the height of the building, but 3 stories will be eliminated, so I guess folks can have 2 stories or 1 story, but.
Or 4.
Or 4, and it's 42 feet, so there's no degradation here to any capacity. And the other one appears to just clarify that the minimum distance is 22 feet.
Okay.
That's the end of my comments.
Mr. Chairman, those are not minor changes. As we discussed before, the first one was because we did want a maximum of 3 stories in the TCD. We don't want 4 stories down there. And 42 feet, so those are both maximums that apply. So that striking allows someone to put a 4-story residential building in there, you know, with 10-foot stories. And the second one, it changes the minimum. The minimum could be 10 feet if they had no back drive. So now the changes to 21 feet, and that's a big change to a developer trying to lay out their property to decide whether they wanted a rear driveway or not. So these are both, you know, that's not clarification, that's a major change to the way these things apply, and not just read. So that's my comment on it.
Thank you. I don't know that we had a second to that, a motion originally. Did someone want to second it? Did someone?
No.
It
Okay.
was, oh, you were making a motion.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't make a motion.
No.
He made the motion.
Andy was
Andy.
making a
made the
motion.
Andy.
We didn't get a second before we went to discussion, but did anyone want a second?
Did you read the motion or just read the proposal?
I thought he was
No,
just reading the
I
proposal.
made the motion, and as part of making the motion, I read it so that folks would know
Oh, okay.
what the motion actually is.
Got it, got
So
it.
do we have a second of that motion?
I second it.
Okay. Now, any further discussion? Hearing what Mr. Timmerman had to say and knowing that we have a couple of new members, I do want people to feel comfortable.
Mhm.
So if anyone wants to table it one more time, we certainly can do that, but if people are ready, I leave it to the members here.
Well, I'm not opposed to tabling it, but I do have a couple of questions. The proposal that we just looked at, which I believe is in the town center district, did
Yeah.
show 4 stories. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw 4 sets of windows.
That's because it's a 8-30G affordable housing, they don't have to hew to our regulations. That's the only reason why. That was the one that they were gonna put a 6-story in.
Okay, and, all right. But the bottom line is,
But for things that aren't 830G, that come into the town center district, then these are the regs that we have.
but let me ask you this question, is it 3 stories in addition to the parking underneath?
No, it's 3 above grade.
Okay.
The parking underneath is subterranean. In the front, doesn't show.
Again, I would defer to the consensus, but I feel like there's still a little bit of questions. So if you want to change your motion to table this till our August 25th meeting, to give yourself and others more time to review it, because it has been about 7 months since we've really talked and thought about this, but I did want to get it back because that's what we had agreed to do. And also, a couple of other people will more than likely be at the next meeting, so we
Okay.
want to do it right and make sure that everyone's comfortable, but
Well, then I'd like to change my motion so that we table this, or we continue this to our next meeting, so that we have an opportunity to look at the back channel on this and situations where this has been a problem or not a problem, or, you know, so that we have a little bit more input and more commission members.
do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Do we have a second? Any discussion?
Yeah, we can talk about, at the next meeting, why they even came about,
To just
Yeah,
review
why
it
those
one more
regulations,
time?
yeah.
Yeah.
the
Sounds good.
intention, yeah. Sure.
Well, maybe we should table that to the meeting beyond. I think next meeting's gonna be pretty packed.
Oh, yeah. we just-
Perhaps the
Why don't we
meeting, the
cross that
September
bridge when we
meeting?
get to it, though?
Yeah,
Fall?
we can always.
Yeah,
Yeah,
things happen. We could have
Yeah.
another night like tonight.
we can always continue it from next
True,
meeting too.
true. Yeah,
Just
that's
put it
And
on
I
the
agree,
agenda.
I agree with you that, you know, as we did tonight, if we've got some priority people that are coming in, we probably should rearrange our agenda so that we
Yeah, I
That
think
was
it's
a
fair
good
to the
idea.
people.
Yeah, that was great.
deal with what we can deal with as quickly as possible.
Oh, just another note about, if we elect to change it, then we actually have to have a public hearing and go through
Okay.
the whole process where we, you know, bring it up to the public.
So we would need to kick this back to Rochelle to see how we would go about doing that.
We would have to, just like with the opt-out and the EV regs, we would have to create our own application to bring it forward in front of ourselves
Yeah, that was my
and
other
then have a
question.
public hearing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So, had discussion. All those in favor of the revised motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The revised motion carries. We basically tabled this item to our next meeting to August 25th. I would also like to take this opportunity to maybe, I should have mentioned this under old business 7A. We're gonna update the town zoning map to reflect the historic district, but we probably need a date, a deadline, so I was gonna ask that we recommend that be like, the first meeting we have in September, which is September 8th. Give everyone a couple of months, but, because the map even on the webpage, and I've been told that it's been updated, but it hasn't yet,
No.
so.
And that's something I think is, I don't know if it'd be, just be a referral, because map change is also a public hearing and everything.
Oh, okay.
But
Wait a
this
sec,
is
you just said a
it-
map change that we just voted to do is a public hearing?
Well, we voted to move forward with it, and moving forward might entail
A public hearing on
public
that.
hearing, or it might not, because it's a zone that exists, we're just,
Yeah, we're not changing anything, we're
We're
just
not changing it,
identifying it,
yeah.
so I don't think in that
and,
case.
and in that case, it might be, we refer back to land use to please make it so, because we're not, they're the ones that actually implement it.
Yeah, my understanding is the map's just missing the historic
Right,
district.
the district exists, it's just not
Just
illustrated on
not
the map.
noted.
It's not-
Okay.
It's not been
So
squared
that's
off.
So I don't
not
think
probably
it's-
gonna be a huge deal.
That's not a public hearing, in my opinion.
I don't think so either.
But in either case, would someone like to make a revised motion, if that's probably necessary? Can we at least have a deadline, because I think there's a tendency for these things to float or drift if we don't.
Well, I would make a revised motion that this be completed by September 30th. Does that make
September
sense?
30th. Okay,
Because as indicated, you know, August 25th is gonna be a little heavy, and a lot of folks take some vacation in August, so not to put too much pressure on our land use office.
But just so you know, our meetings in September are the 8th and 22nd.
Okay.
So,
still, it could be any date, so the 30th gives them more time, certainly. If everyone's agreeable to that, do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second from Mr. Timmerman to Mr. Kame's motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. I don't think we can have public discussion on this. And if those are in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? That motion carries. I think that's pretty much everything. Even if I may, I'd like to take maybe a chair's prerogative and take this opportunity to welcome Dawn as our new recording secretary.
Thank you.
I have to say, I don't know your last name.
Rosiello.
Rosiello?
She's even got her own.
Oh,
Got a temporary nameplate, huh? So welcome, Dawn. Good luck. There's a bunch of items that are on there due to our bylaws, but if anyone has anything in formal discussion they want to add, otherwise, if anyone wants to make a motion to adjourn, we could entertain that.
Well, I just wanted to talk about, just throw two topics out for some thought, discussion possibly amongst the commissioners. One is there's a 165-foot cell tower proposed for Brookfield for 5G. If anybody's been taking a look at the paper, town of Mayapack has apparently taken the developers that want to put a cell tower over there to a court and have gotten an injunction against them, claiming they've got a ruling that says these are dangerous. Just throwing that out for consideration. Another thing is, as part of these zoning things here of map changes, there was something that I had heard about the cemeteries might not, and the GIS system, and they may or may not be, so I'm not quite sure what that is. I just wanted to bring that to the attention. And then also we have our Charter Revision Commission that's going on right now. Many towns don't do planning and zoning, or zoning. They do planning and zoning in one commission. So I didn't know what folks thought about that. I, as a citizen, am intending to.
Is that something they're considering?
I think so,
I-
because we have
yeah.
less developable land, you know.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
Right.
Not lot, yeah.
And then the other thing is, Inland Wetland Commission and Conservation Commission are usually pulled into two. It's not my idea, I looked at how New Milford and Newtown do it, and it seems that less commissions is a better idea, especially for the folks, because in this commission, you would hear what the developer is thinking from the word go, and, could certainly comment on it and have a more of an influence as to the way the outcome of the project would be. I think it's a good idea, just throwing it out.
I believe Danbury has them both combined,
Which two?
Many do,
planning and
Planning
zoning.
and
Oh, yeah.
zoning?
many do, yes. That's that's the end of my spiel.
Thank you. Anyone else? Phoebe?
That's good food for thought, all of that, the cell tower, the planning and zoning, all of that. I had the same thought
The
along
thing about the
way,
cell tower is,
about planning and zoning,
yeah,
and the cell tower.
well, the thing about the cell tower is that, everybody says it's, there's a need. However, and this may not even be our purview. I know our regulations sort of defer to the Connecticut Siting Council. Easton, however, has put in a moratorium, and some other towns, I think, in Connecticut have put in a moratorium. The real issue, of course, is need. If there's need, then there's need. But the question is, how do you demonstrate the need? And there's a couple different ways to do that.
Didn't we approve something on Vale Road, like
I don't think
before?
That's what's coming through.
When
for
was
that.
that, Kurt? Like before these
This
guys
is, this,
came, or?
no, well, the one
I
thing
think
we were
the first
looking at.
meeting they were here.
We were looking, oh, yeah, we were
Remember
looking
that?
at 5G regulations for view shed, because we can't control much, but the federal government says if you have nothing controlling, then they can run roughshod over us. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
They can place them, in like ugly positions. So we can put regulations in to require them to give us a report every year on the emissions to make sure
Okay.
they're not above.
Okay,
To maintain an aesthetic appeal, to not ruin the view sheds, like don't put them up in Happy Landings or outside of it.
right.
So
Well,
at
that would be,
Westcog-
that would be a disaster.
Westcog has given us a plan to, a sample day, in order to try to take those and protect ourselves, protect our town from the Verizons and from running roughshod over us.
I'd like us to consider that if it's something we can do. I mean, I'm not opposed to anybody doing anything with their property, but the aesthetic component, the emissions component, some radiation safety, the Vale Road is, everybody thinks it's merely just golf course, but on the other side of the railroad tracks, there's quite a bit of housing.
Yeah, that's right.
We should all do our homework then and just read up on all
Yeah,
this.
so, this is not an issue that goes one way or the other. This is a safety issue and an aesthetic issue for the town. So, if we can't, we should consider it and look into it in some way, is my only suggestion.
Points well taken. Anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Anyone want to second that?
Second.
Mr. Kane made the motion to adjourn. Mr. Komar seconded it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Good
Gonna
night.
Turn off.
Could you turn your microphone off?